Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Kat. I will be doing a reading wrap-up for the months of April, May, and June. I've read a total of 10 books, so I did read most of my TBR. I'm gonna go through them relatively quickly because some of them I did read in reading vlogs in the past. Let's get right into it. The first two books I have are Ballad of Sword and Wine Volume 2 and 3. I gave Volume 2 5 stars and Volume 3 5.5 stars. I have talked about these books so much and so extensively. By this point, you guys know what it's about. It's very political with very complex characters, and you guys also know why I love it so much and why the series has already become one of my favorites I've read. I've only read 3 of the books so far, and there's 8 in total. The 8th one is due to come out in August. I'm almost hesitant to even recommend this because it can be a little difficult to follow and it can be a little convoluting in the beginning. However, if you stick with it, it has great payoff. When I first embarked on my journey of reading the series with the first volume, I didn't know what I was gonna get myself into. I didn't know what to expect. I was pleasantly surprised. These books have blown all expectations out of the water. I love our main 2 characters. I love the political intrigue, the scheming. I am enjoying each of their backstories and their motivations. And our 2 main characters, I'm enjoying their love and their relationship unfurling on the pages. I cannot wait to just continue this book series, but again, in no rush. After that, I read The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I gave this book a 4.5 star rating. The story focuses on Achilles and Patroclus, who are best friends since childhood, and we are reading about their lives from boyhood into adulthood. They started off as innocent boys, just exploring their feelings for one another, and also preparing for Achilles to become the greatest Greek warrior ever, all the while facing the impending Trojan War that's going to change the course of their lives forever. First of all, the writing in this story was out of this world. It was so beautiful, so lush with vivid imagery. It was just so poetic and so lyrical. It's like a song. I mean, it's in the title, right? I also felt that the writing was paced very well. It took the right amount of time for them to explore their feelings for each other and then them transitioning into adulthood and having to face war. I also love to see the way these characters developed and they progressed, especially seeing Achilles, who at first all he wanted was to just be with Patroclus. Like, Patroclus was his whole world. It was his reason for everything, and he wanted to also continue to develop his skills. But as time went on, his pride got in the way and it became his downfall, as is the case with most Greek heroes. Achilles loved being admired by Patroclus the most because Patroclus held him in such great and high esteem. Even though he wasn't a god, Patroclus was utterly devoted to Achilles. Achilles, no matter how much he tried to avoid becoming the sort of person his mom wanted to be, in some ways became like that person. It makes you question, did Achilles even have any free will to begin with? Was he destined to become this person, this warrior? Was he doomed from the start? I had a lot of sympathy for Patroclus because honestly, he just wanted a future with Achilles. He wanted his friends to be okay. He wanted this war to come to an end already. I also feel like in some ways, he probably regretted meeting Achilles because he did envision his life and he did kind of play around with the idea of having a family and having children. I think it was a very interesting choice to write this book from Patroclus's point of view because we know Achilles as this barbaric, violent warrior. Reading it from Patroclus's viewpoint, which is obviously very biased, we see this more softer side to him, and then we also see what transpired to eventually change Achilles. The worst part about it was a lot of us do know the tragedy of Achilles and Patroclus, so as I kept reading, there's this like impending doom because I know what's going to happen. I do enjoy Madeline Miller's storytelling and writing, and I can't wait to read more. After that, I read Beach Read by Emily Henry. This is my first book by Emily Henry, and I gave it a 2.5 star rating. So this book follows January and Augustus, who are both writers. January loses her father, and she goes to a beach house that he used to live in, and she does learn about a lot of his secrets. At the same time, she meets Augustus, who was an academic rival of hers, and they had a hot steamy dance session at a party, and she's never forgotten it, he's never forgotten it, and so they're trying to navigate that as well as this writer's block they both have. They write in very different genres, so one day they decide to swap genres to see if that can help with their writer's block. I did not like this book. A lot of it is because of these characters. They just felt so childish to me, especially January. I know that she loves the idea of happily ever afters, and she loves romance, and she's like a hopeless romantic in some ways, and she has this bubbly personality and whatnot, but it just read and it felt like it was written in a very childish manner. She still lived in her own bubble where fairy tales and happily ever afters exist. I'm sure it's a coping mechanism, but it just felt like she never grew up or grew out of it. She also was very clueless. It seemed like she needed everything spelled out for her, even Augustus's feelings for her, which he was very upfront, right? He was upfront about how much he liked her, and the clues were very obvious, yet I don't know, it just flew past her head. Augustus also read like a cringe character. There was absolutely nothing memorable about him. I did not like him as the main male character, and he seems to coddle January a lot with reassurances, and it just kind of got to the point of being annoying, because like, how many times do you have to tell somebody that you like them and only them? Their rivalry that they had in college, I don't understand how that came to be. It felt very one-sided, because it seemed like January was the only one who perceived Augustus as a rival. We never learn if Augustus also saw January as a rival. They don't seem to have a lot in common. It seems like the only thing they had in common was the fact that they're both authors who are struggling, and that's it. And I'm being a total hater here, but their names, January, August, I remember there was this one line that Augustus says. I did forget the context, but he said, "That shit's so fire." And I don't know why that coming out of the mouth of a 30-something-year-old just gave me the ick. I understand that this is, at the end of the day, a romance book, so the romance was central to the plot, but I do wish that we did spend a little bit more time with January processing her dad's death and then what she learns about him, and also a little bit more on her estranged mother. It seemed like Augustus was just the pinnacle of her existence, and he served more as a distraction from all her traumas than an actual love interest. I did appreciate how much January was an advocate for romance books and the romance genre as a whole, but I did not like how much she kept comparing her books, her career, to Augustus's. This is something that I also noticed in another book I read years ago called The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, where our main character, whose name I forgot, she is a STEM major who's pursuing her doctorate. So impressive, yet she still compares her accomplishments to that of the main male character. And it's like, girl, you have come so far in a very tough field. You should be proud of that. Why are you comparing your accomplishments to someone else, right? Overall, I was not a fan of this book. Actually, it made me hate reading for a bit. I didn't even want to pick up another book. I'm trying to read popular authors and popular books to hopefully find some sort of connection with romance books. I'm not going to like shoot the genre down or anything. It may not be the genre for me, but I'm still trying to find the one romance book that I will feel connected with. Then I read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is my first book by this author, and I gave it a 5-star rating. I did make a reading vlog of me reading this book, so I won't go too much into it, but I loved this book so much. It was so impactful. It meant so much to me. There were so many parts of it and so many parts of Evelyn that I could connect with personally. This book holds a very special place in my heart. I will not forget my experience with it. I read this book in like a day and a half or 2 days. I could not put it down. This was such a brilliant, brilliant novel. I see why people love it, and I also see why people love and admire this author. I also read Water Moon by Samantha Sotomayor, and I gave this book 4 stars. So this book follows Hana, whose father mysteriously disappears, and Hana is in charge of a pawn shop that was passed down by her dad as well. This pawn shop is like a magical pawn shop where people come accidentally or intentionally to trade their choices. These choices are kind of like choices that they're burdened with, choices that they never made, and they want to forget about it. Once Hana finds out that her dad's disappeared, she embarks on this journey with another character named Kishin to find her father, and they basically traverse through all these different dimensions and all these different worlds. If you're just looking for something that's not intense, that's pretty much low stakes for the most part, and you just want to go on like an adventure, then you're gonna enjoy this book. I did make a reading vlog of me reading this book, so I won't go too much into it, but I did enjoy it. I did like it. After that, I read Final Girls by Riley Sager. I gave this book a 2.5 star rating. This follows Quincy, who is a final girl. She survived a mass killing where all of her friends died. She was the only one who survived. She ends up meeting another final girl from her town. They bond over the fact that a third final girl from their town was found dead and somebody killed her. So now her and Samantha are both trying to figure out what happened to the third final girl who died. I made a reading vlog of this book as well. This was such a disappointment, guys. I was so disappointed. This was so boring, and it was such a slog, and it was so drawn out. Quincy is an absolutely boring character. I did not like that we even read from her point of view and that we were in her head for the most part. She's also a baker who runs like a baking vlog, and so we get pages of all these details around her baking that took up so much space in this book. I just felt like we could cut so much of it down. Riley Sager has such a great writing style, one that I enjoy reading. So even though I was not having a good time with this book in terms of story and characters, the writing kept me interested. That's the only thing that I liked about this book. And then I read City of Glass, which is book 3 in the Mortal Instruments series by Cassandra Clare. I gave this book a 3.0 star rating. Clary and friends are dealing with the return of Valentine. They're also trying to decipher what his plans are. And at the same time, Clary and Jace are struggling with their feelings for each other, considering they are assumed to be siblings. It wasn't the story or the length that put me off as much as it was these weird incestuous storylines that the author decided to write about. Okay, a lot of us read this series already, so I'm not going to worry about spoiling anything, but Claire and Jace are assumed to be siblings, but they're not siblings. But in this book, they think they still are siblings. And there was this like make-out scene that happened on the grass at night, and it just put me off so bad, because personally, even if I liked someone so much, the minute I find out they're my brother, I'm under the pretense that they're my brother, I'm not gonna kiss them. Okay, I'm not gonna kiss them. My feelings probably will disappear too. They made out knowing and thinking that they are siblings. I get it that they don't know, but why did Cassandra Clare go with that? Like, why was that a choice? And then there's another kissing scene between Clary and her actual brother, Sebastian. Clary didn't know that was her brother, but I don't know if Sebastian knew that was his sister. Doesn't matter. I don't know why Cassandra Clare went with that creative choice either. So that was my biggest problem, is that why do we write these incestuous storylines? I'm not even rooting for this couple because it's just weird. Like, I can't get it out of my head that they thought they were siblings and they still kissed each other. Then I read Heartstopper Volume 3 by Alice Oseman. I give this book a 4.0 star rating. Nick and Charlie and friends, they go on a trip to Paris. It's a school trip. Nick and Charlie are still struggling with coming out as a couple to their friends. Charlie is dealing with some deeper issues relating to his mental health, and at the same time, Nick and Charlie are also exploring more intimate aspects of their relationship. I loved how supportive the boys' friends were and their family were of them coming out. Also reading about the genuine fear they have about coming out and not being accepted, because this is a real fear that many queer folk have. I also liked how Nick and Charlie's friends, they were okay with them taking their time with coming out. This book also touched on some mental health issues that I feel like will be explored more in the 4th book. And then last but not least, I read The Great Vampiric Deception. This is by Jolene Getler, and I gave this a 2.0 star rating. In this world, vampires and humans coexist. The vampires are portrayed as very cruel and vicious, violent and abusive monsters. Unfortunately, Victoria, our main character, she fell into an abusive relationship with a vampire who completely ruined her life. As a result, she decides to start a victim support group for other humans who were also in abusive or violent relationships with vampires. One day, a new member joins their group and his name is Grayson. Grayson goes against everything Victoria stands for, and she has to fight her growing attraction for him. This book held a lot of promise. I felt like there was so much potential with this idea and this concept, but it was just so poorly executed. This writing style was just so annoying to read because there's a lot of description of her day-to-day routine, her outfits, her hair, all these mundane descriptions that could have been stripped away and we still would have gotten the full picture. Even the dialogue scenes were just giant paragraphs of monologues, and so it did not feel like a conversation between characters. As much as I tried to sympathize with Victoria, I could not get past her insufferable personality. She had this holier-than-thou mentality, not like the other girls' attitude, and it was just so annoying to read. She's also emotionally reactive. She does not take the time to just pause. She just throws tantrums and jumps to conclusions very quickly. I also feel like she has a bias against women because she repeatedly called one of her coworkers a bitch for hitting on Grayson. She dismisses the experiences of women in her own support group. She ridicules her yoga teacher, who's a woman. She also ridicules the women who are part of this book club that she's in. Grayson was also an annoying character to read about because he was written to be this dominant and alpha vampire during certain confrontational scenes, but it just felt so forced. I was under the pretense that we were going to read about these abuse victims and what they went through and how they're healing from it and what their journey is like. That is what I was hoping for. I had no idea that this was going to be more about the romance between Grayson and Victoria. I just wish the book didn't veer in that direction. I would check trigger warnings. It's not explicitly written. There are mentions of it, and so I would check the trigger warnings, which I believe the author does list them in like the first few pages. I will say this, you will never guess the ending of this book. So that is it for my reading wrap up. Those were the 10 books I've read in the past 3 months. Let me know if you've read any of those books and what your thoughts were. I hope you're having a wonderful day, morning, night, evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Once again, please take care of yourself and those around you, and I will see you next time. Bye!